to build migrant detention camps and deploy the U.S. military to deport the more than 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. It would be the largest deportation operation in American history. Do you support that plan?
11 million. That's an outdated. That was the number 10 years ago. We're talking upwards of 20, 25, maybe 30 million.
Well,
There's been almost 10 million people that have entered this country unlawfully in the last 3 years.
To the question, would you support it?
The number varies big time. I mean, it's another 9 to 10 million people just in the last 3 years. The answer to your question is yes. We cannot absorb 25, 30 million people who entered this country illegally. They're here illegally. What country on earth would tolerate that? We don't even know who most of these people are. They talk about vetting them with what? They're coming from nations that don't even have document systems in many cases. Yes, we are going to have to do something, unfortunately. We're going to have to do something dramatic to remove people from this country that are here illegally, especially people we know nothing about. But 10 million, 11 million, that was the number 15 years ago. Today, it's upwards of probably 25 to 30 million, maybe more.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, what we have here is that illegal immigrants are self-deporting themselves because the absolute fear of Donald Trump and bringing down the deportation hammer is ringing too true for them. So they are self-deporting themselves and are running away. And due to this, this has the illegals so scared that apparently they are not going to school. Yes, that's right. They're not showing up to school at all because of fear of being deported by ICE.
Are taking action after they say recent Border Patrol detentions across the Central Valley are impacting attendance in classrooms. Thank you for joining us for Action News Live at 5. I'm Graciela Moreno.
And good evening, I'm Warren Armstrong. President-elect Donald Trump has promised mass deportations when he takes office on Monday, and that's creating a lot of anxiety in Valley classrooms.
Action News anchor Eliza Navarro joins us live from downtown Fresno with the message educators have for students and parents. Eliza.
Grace, Warren, local leaders and nonprofits united this morning to share a message to the immigrant community about their rights, but also to tell undocumented families that they should not be afraid to drop off their children at school. Border Patrol agents recently detained 78 people in Fresno and Kern counties. The agency says they were targeting criminals involved in drug and human trafficking. However, the American Civil Liberties Union says they believe the number of those detained is nearly double than reported by the government, closer to 190. The operation has spread fear among undocumented immigrants.
Having our parents deported or dealing with these immigration issues is a real trauma.
The enforcement is also impacting school attendance.
We are starting to see some students not show up. We are doing everything we can to let our parents know that school is safe.
Several education leaders and nonprofits came together Thursday to address the concerns of many in the immigrant community searching for answers.
Fear of driving a person to appointments, clients requesting paperwork to be mailed out rather than picking it up, fear of attending in-person court hearings.
Fresno County Board of Education trustee Itzel Robles says families need to know that students are safe at school. Robles shared her own experience as a child when her father was deported after a traffic stop.
The one place that I always remember felt safe was school. Going to school was the place where I was happy.
She remembers the support she felt from teachers and reminds parents that their students are safe on campus.
Officers cannot enter a school without a warrant signed by a judge.
Now, I'm really confused here, but these people are so scared that they're not sending their kids to school because they're afraid of being deported. But the only reason why ICE is arresting these people in Fresno is because, well, they're catching all these illegal immigrants doing drug trafficking and child sex trafficking. So I don't know where they can even connect the dots here on how exactly this would be related to them. I mean, are you child sex trafficking your own children? Are you doing it too? Because that's the only possible way you can connect those dots, because it doesn't make any other sense otherwise. So perhaps maybe you do need a little visit from ICE to maybe just to check up on a few things and make sure you're not doing anything highly illegal in our country. And what we have here is that the woke media is crying about it, right? They just can't deal that Mayor Adams is wanting to, at the very least, talk to Donald Trump about this whole situation because, it's probably a good thing to work with the federal government to remove said illegal immigrants from our country because, they're illegal immigrants. And that's probably a good thing to do that. But unfortunately for MSNBC, they find a problem with this. And it's very weird.
With a mayor, again, that hasn't just signaled this willingness to cooperate and collaborate with the Trump administration, but one that is literally on his way to go meet him just 4 days before inauguration. And so I think that's the question that these migrants had. No? How will this sanctuary city that has always been this embodiment of immigrants protect them from Trump? I think one of the things that is uncomfortable, but I think you and I have talked about this many times, is the way in which the migrant crisis fundamentally changed all these cities.
Totally.
Really testing what it means to be a sanctuary city, not just sort of this physical capacity to take on migrants, but the moral capacity, to sort of like hold on to these principles when this country's shifting to the right. And I think that's the fear, that you can't even rely on this idea anymore. Will they separate my family? Like that is what everyone is thinking about. Will our families be separated? After crossing the Darien jungle, which they did, after navigating the Mexican cartels, crossing the southern border, they're seeking asylum in a country that is threatening to separate their families. And I think that's sort of what we have to understand. That's what's coming up. In 4 days, we're about to see a Trump administration that's not just empowered, but will be completely emboldened. I don't know if you remember in 2017, literally within Trump being in office a couple of months, ICE arrests completely increased by 30%. Because I think that's the fear that people like Jason have right now, no? What does it mean to have this administration emboldened? No, what it means is that literally you're going to have local law enforcement pretending to be ICE agents. You're going to have ICE feeling emboldened to go into churches, hospitals, as we talked about, schools. You're going to have a new DHS that will also feel emboldened to pretend like we're literally being invaded at the southern border. You will have vigilantes emboldened to take matters into their own hands. And so all of this will definitely be contested. There will be legal fights. But I think the point is that what they're trying to do now is inflict fear. Inflict so much fear so that people like Jason either self-deport, or hide in the shadows. That's the strategy.
Did they have?
Yeah, so they really are not having a great time. Now, the woman goes out and says, like, oh, well, the fear of our children being deported or whatever because, they're being deported but be separated from their families. Well, first and foremost, maybe the families shouldn't have brought their children over illegally to the country and not expect something bad to happen. Maybe, getting deported and back sent to another family. But even despite that, Trump has said that this is not going to happen, right? They said, you don't have to be deported separately. You can just get deported together. Or at least Trump's illegal official has gone out and said this, right? So you could just be deported together. They're both the families and the kids. So they're trying to spoke into fear here and try to protect the illegal immigrants and say like, it's like, don't worry, be safe, it's fine. And it's just disgusting, really. It's quite disgusting. And they're saying everything that that Trump is secretly saying, not saying out loud, is that, well, Trump is trying to invoke fear so these people can self-deport, so it makes it easier on our government not to have to deport these people. And on top of that, it is making it to where we have less of these illegals in our countries. That's pretty much what they're saying here. And now we know that the Democratic Party has a massive, massive problem of loving the American people. Because loving the American people is not something the Democrats really do. They would rather focus on keeping the illegal immigrants safe, protecting them, and saying F you to the Americans that really voted to remove all these illegals from our country. And Democrats seem to just not care about that. They care more about the illegals than their own people, which is the Americans.
Call your attention to an effort that I've led to help reunite children with their parents, children who were separated as a result of the so-called family separation policy in the last administration. I have introduced a measure called Keep Families Together, not only to limit separation of families at or near ports of entry, but also the families belong Together Act for several Congresses to help bring the children, the kids who were victims of this policy and who still are not big back with their parents. I hope that you will support that kind of effort.
Senator, the Trump administration never had a family separation policy. They had a zero tolerance policy, which said that our laws would be followed. What I'm alarmed by is the over 300,000 children that went missing during the Biden administration. And when we talk about children and what they're potentially facing as far as victimization in this country and the trafficking that's going on, this administration's lack of desire to find out where those children are or what they may be going through is alarming to me. So I want to stop that.
Because my time is expiring, I'm just going to interrupt again with apologies to say, let's put aside.
Well, I can't put aside 340,000 children.
Labels. Let's put aside what happened in the past. There are still 1,000 children who are separated and waiting to be reunited. I'd like your commitment that you're going to continue the effort to reunite them with their parents.
Senator, keeping families together is critically important to me and to this country. I'm concerned about Laken Riley's family, that they no longer have her. I'm concerned about the fact that we have people in this country that don't know where their children are, or people in other countries who sent their children here and they've been lost by this administration. So yes, my focus will be to keep families together. We will uphold our law and we'll make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our children safe from the trafficking and the drug epidemic that's hit this country.
I'm going to end on an optimistic note and say I take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there you have it. You have the Democrats doing the typical thing where they don't really care for Americans. They don't really care for anybody but the illegal immigrants. Pretty much the whole like Loretta situation too, where, they don't really care about, what happens to them, and where the illegal, besides ending her life, want to do horrible things to her before ending her life. They don't really care about that. They more care about, deporting trying to keep illegal immigrant families together than, try to protect the American citizens, people like that. Instead, it's like they don't care about, creating policies or talking about policies that will bring together, that would solve this problem and, maybe keep Americans safe, making policies to make sure that we don't have illegals coming into this country, going and killing American citizens, protecting the American citizens with these policies. No, they won't talk about that. And they won't talk about keeping families together. And on top of that as well, he didn't even acknowledge the 300,000 missing kids that were obviously, missing. He said, that's in the past. Let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about now. Even though the huge concern is the 300,000 kids that are missing, and you don't even want to talk about that. You don't even want to talk about the past. This is showing exactly what the Democratic mind is when it talks about really important things that matter to kids or the American citizens. It's flat out in day. Now, what we have here is from the Post-Millennial saying, illegal immigrants self-deporting ahead of Trump's return to the White House. Illegal immigrants have been self-deporting ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. According to a new report from News Nation reporter George Ventura, the decision to voluntarily deport the United States has been attributed to both the Trump administration's projected border policies that call for mass deportation and a change in Mexican legislation that allows the country to accept non-Mexican deportees. So without further ado, my friends, here we have the actual report here that is going on with this.
Hour here, and President-elect Trump has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. And before those operations begin, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joins us live from San Antonio, Texas this morning with more on this story. Jorge, how many migrants are we actually seeing doing this, leaving voluntarily?
Right now, Marky, it's unclear, but we are starting to see a trend, and this comes as cities across the U.S. and Mexico are now bracing for President-elect's deportation operation. But his hardline messaging on those deportation efforts have some migrants panicking and some even choosing now to self-deport back to their home countries. I spoke with immigration attorney Rolando Vasquez, who tells me that some of the immigrants that he represents that entered under the Biden administration are now choosing to return home, fearing deportation under the incoming administration.
Just as recent as yesterday, they notified me that they're going to depart the country voluntarily, and understanding that, the Trump administration is going to carry through on their promises.
And it's not just Trump's deportation plans that are influenced these decisions. Vasquez says it's also that Mexico is now open to accepting non-Mexican deportees. Mexico's move would impact Cuban and Venezuelan migrants the most, since those countries typically do not accept deportation flights from the U.S., but may from Mexico.
This is causing for many migrants to leave on their own, knowing that they're either going to be deported to their home country or be deported to Mexico. And they obviously, the overwhelming majority of them do not want to be in Mexico.
And my sources in Mexico tell me that it's likely that cartels and smugglers will exploit, kidnap, and extort those newly deported migrants. As of right now, it's unclear if Mexico has a plan to protect those deported migrants, Marky.
Yeah, border's about to change on Monday. At least that's what voters were promised. Jorge Ventura, thank you so much, live from San Antonio this morning.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to join.
Yeah, so Trump is doing God's work. He's not even in office yet, guys. He's not even in office yet, and he is already making these illegal immigrants deport and leave our country. And that's what we need. This is what Trump said when he said he was they would just deport themselves because of the laws, and let's keep it going. This is a good thing. And of course, the media and the far left Democrats are always talking about how this is a bad thing, this is an issue, trying to defend and say, it's okay, don't leave, because, that's just the way they are. Well, guys, that's it for the video. Let's guys share. As always, take care, my friends.
I'm disgusted by what I see in public. Even people closest to us can't be trusted, because it's algorithmic disease, the social media.